Today on the Railway Room, I'm looking at the newly released Kato Peco Large England Welsh Pony. Hello friends and welcome back to the Railway Room. So yes, today I'm going to be looking at this, which is the brand new Kato Peco Large England Welsh Pony. So it's quite well known the Kato and Peco have released the small Englands a couple of years ago, Prince and Princess, available in both red, maroon and green liveries. And just recently they've added to the roster with another version of the small England in Palmerston and 3 variants of the large England, Little Giant, Welsh Pony and the fictional Exmoor Pony. So the one I've gone for is this, which is Welsh Pony. And I, like many people of my age, I have very fond memories of climbing in the cab of Welsh Pony when it was plinthed in the car park at Harbour Station. Never really dreaming that it would actually be steamed again. Thankfully, it actually has. And so it comes out in this model in the Victorian style brown livery, which it has carried since it returned to steam. Some people refer to that as a fictional livery, which is not really the case because it is the livery it's carrying at the moment, but it's not really a historical livery in that, as far as anybody knows, none of the locos carried this livery in Victorian times. It is purely a modern day preservation livery. And it does make a nice counterpoint to the reds, maroons and greens that the other England engines are available in. As for the difference between it being a large or small England, again that's going to be a point of contention between people as to whether they really want one of these or not. So we'll put a pin into that and we'll come back to it later. But for now, I just really want to get this open and have a good look at it. I'm very excited to have this in the collection. Okay, so let's get her unboxed and have a look. So we've got the Large England Welsh Pony in brown. It's part number 51251D. You've got some QR codes here and just a bit of information on the back barcode. I do really like that it's got the Festiniog and Welsh Highland crest on it as well, and the website address has a very nice show of support for the railway. So open it up, we've got a nice little tab there, so we can just pull on that and that should hopefully, yeah, pull the loco out of the box. And underneath, okay, so we've just got a little bit of basic instruction sheet there, and we've got a listing of accessories, instructions for installing grab irons and couplers, and a lot more information on the back. And then we've got a basic plastic sheet there. Oh, and there's another protective sheet there. And I can see that they've put this extra piece of foam padding in there. So I think that's something they added after the first run of the Prince and Princesses, where the cabs were coming loose in the box. So really nice to see that they've fixed that one. Let's just have a little look at the instructions. So these are the grab handles, and there's some alternative couplings as well. So there's the loco, looking very nice, I must say. Let's just gently see if we can slide her out. Oh wow. Yes, looking very nice. So we can see the tender is permanently attached on this screw, and that's because you've got pickups on all of the tender wheels as well, which will really help with slow running through points and things like that. And the other thing to note is that we have got traction tyres on the rear wheels there, We'll talk about those in a bit. I do really like these disc wheels. It's true to the prototype there. So yeah, let's get her down and have a closer look. Okay, so there we are, and looking very nice, I think. I do like the fine printing of the number 5 on the buffer beam there. The handrails in the correct positions, they're separately fitted. There is a grab iron there that's purely moulded. I suspect in scale terms it's too small for it to be a separately fitted piece. So the lining out is very nicely done here. I particularly like the very fine line around the edge of the saddle tank there. One thing is the builder's plates there are purely printed. There's no etched alternatives included, so if you want etched plates you have to order your own. Some lovely detail underneath the cab here, and all these riveted details around the bottom of the firebox there. You're probably never going to see them when it's running, but it's really nice to have it. And so moving on to the tender, you can see the lining again is very nicely done. Got the crest applied there, some very fine lines in that. Lots of lovely riveted details along the edges of the tender there, and brake detail underneath. Nice enough detail in the hinges and the clasp on the dog. It is of course moulded coal, but that's pretty standard with ready to run locos. I may put a bit of real coal on the top of that just to liven it up a bit. And again, the lining out lovely, and the number 5 on the back of the tender. That's very nice. Yeah, so you can't really see too well through the opening in the cab, but if I shine a torch in there you can see there is actually some moulded detail on the back head there. It does seem to be entirely moulded into black plastic, no separately fitted pieces or anything in there. But it is represented, so that is nice to see. Once you get some crew in there, you're probably not going to be able to see very much in the cab anyway. And pretty much the same quality of finish on this side. It's even more of the rivets on the bottom of the firebox there. I will note there's a couple of things, like there's some pipe work to the smoke box here that's present on the prototype that's not been represented in the model, so it's maybe not as super detailed as you might expect from certain other manufacturers perhaps, but it very much looks the part, and I think it does capture the feel of the prototype very well. Certainly there's scope to add a couple of extra details to personalise it if you wanted to, but I do think it looks very nice as it is. So I think this is actually a pretty good compromise between something that looks the part and that is also hopefully a very functional and usable model, because certainly other manufacturers have made models that look absolutely stunning but don't necessarily perform very well on the track, so hopefully the reputation of these would suggest that they do not fall into that trap. So I guess we probably need to talk about the elephant in the room. Let's address it. This is fundamentally the same tooling as the Small England, the successful and very well received versions that they've put out of Prince and Princess. The Large Englands are of course slightly different. For example, the wheelbase is slightly longer, the tank's slightly longer, the cab's slightly different. These are not being represented in this particular model. But having said that, the differences between the Small and Large Englands are not as pronounced as you might expect from the names. The small locos were actually rebuilt quite heavily. If you were to look at two of the prototypes next to each other, you'd be very hard pushed to actually see the differences. And most people wouldn't notice them at all. Once you shrink them down to 1/76th of the size, most of the differences you're going to have to get calipers out to actually measure them to be able to spot the differences. So the wheelbase here, I think, comes out at about 2mm wrong. The catch with that is it would mean redesigning the chassis, which would add to the production costs considerably, and I don't really blame Peco and Kato for not wanting to do that. It really would be a case of making a compromise version or not releasing it at all. Probably the most obvious difference though is the cab side sheets. So on Welsh Pony, the opening here should be centrally placed, and the front section and the back section should be the same size. And it wouldn't be hugely noticeable if it wasn't in the livery with the lining, which does really point out the differences in size between the front and the back. So that is a bit of a compromise. I'm assuming that somebody at either Peco and Kato decided that the cost of retooling the cab for these locos was going to cost more than it would be worthwhile for doing it. And ultimately, again, it's come down to a decision: do you release a compromised version like this, or do you just not release a model at all? And in those circumstances, I'm definitely glad that we have this version. A similar situation, I think, would be Bachmann's Double Fairley with David Lloyd George. The tooling for that is not quite correct for David Lloyd George, but they still put it out as a slightly compromised version, as a limited run for their collectors club. To me, what Peco and Kato have done here with the large Englands is fundamentally the same thing, except that instead of having to sign up to their collectors club and paying a premium, and there only being a limited number of them, these are much more widely available, and available for general sale with no extra premiums. So actually I would applaud Peco and Kato for that, and for putting this out at all. Individual mileages will definitely vary on the accuracy to the prototype. Certainly I've heard some people say that they wouldn't really want one of these with the compromises. Some people saying that they would need to modify it to be happy with it. But I've also seen these flying off the shelves and making a lot of people very happy already. As for where I stand, well, I've bought it. This is the first of these Peco Kato England locos that I've got, so I guess that tells you where I stand on the issue. So just as a reminder of how far 009 has come in recent years, here it is alongside my dad's old Langley kit for Prince, and you can really see the differences and the improvements in this Peco Kato version. The cab profile is much flatter and then up down, whereas this is much smoother. We want how chunky the chimney is in comparison. The moulding, the smoke box door there is much less clean. Probably the key thing is just how much higher it sits on this Arbitron chassis. This one is much more representative of the prototype. It's quite low over the wheels, and that does result in the overall height being quite a bit taller on the old Langley one. And again, from this angle you can really see the different height from the wheels there. These wheels are slightly too small, and it's nicely proportioned over here. The bandings on the old Langley kit is just a strip of white metal, whereas you've got all these rivet details all across there. Comparing the tenders, again, the Langley is so much larger than the Peco Kato one, which seems much finer. And of course the whole finish is much more professional. And again, from above you can see this Langley kit is not bad for its time, but it does look rather crude and oversized compared to this Peco Kato one. People are starting to complain about the fidelity to the prototype, and then remembering that just a few years ago this was the best that we could hope for. We really are very lucky to to have these. Which is not to take anything away from this old Prince. I have a very sentimental attachment to it. It is one of the locos that helped to provoke my love of 009 modelling. So it's always going to be very dear to me. But things really have stepped up a lot with these ready-to-run versions. But of course the really interesting thing is not just how it looks, but how it performs down on the track. So let's get it down onto a test track and see if Welsh Pony has it where it counts. Okay, so I'm undergoing some work on my main layout at the moment. So I've just got this little test track here where we can see how she goes. So let's see if we can get her onto the track. And let's give her first ever run. Oh, that's very smooth, even straight from the box. And this is possibly not the cleanest piece of track either. But there's all of those wheels picking up, certainly doing the job, keeping it going. Very smooth, very nice. Now remembering this is purely straight from the box, there's been no running in at all. Let's see how she does on a very slow crawl. So it's a pretty good slow speed. There is a couple of slight hesitations in there. It's not super smooth at the moment, but once you get it going a little bit faster, it's very luscious. And I think once it's running a bit more, it will become a little bit smoother over the slow speeds as well. Okay, so my go-to basic haulage test, these white metal gem bug boxes. And for reference, those 3 coaches weigh a whopping 156 grams between the 3 of them, 155. No problem at all. Okay, so let's have a look at that little lot. It's not even breaking a sweat really, the coupling there is dodgy, but really should have those 2 the other way around. But not a problem. Okay, so I don't know if you can see the readout there, but that's a 6% gradient. So that's pretty serious. And let's see how she does light engine. Coming down obviously not an issue. Going up light engine, no problem. Not really a surprise. Let's see how she does if we put some weight behind her. So 6% gradient. We've got the 3 heavy bug boxes on the end and a plastic intermediary coach just for the coupling, because the couplings on these are a little bit higher than they really should be. I need to sort those out at some point. But the 6% gradient, it's starting to feel it I think, but marches away with it with very little problem. Okay, so we're facing here 8% gradient. Not sure quite what that comes out as in real money as it were, but it's pretty stiff. And it's just storming up that, absolutely no issue at all. And that's on a very slight curve as well. Here we go then. 10% gradient. It's certainly starting to feel it I think, but just, yeah, very, very impressive. And for reference, the Bachmann Quarry Hunslet could only haul 2 of these on the flat, never mind about any gradient. So to be able to storm away at a 10% gradient with those is very good. So now we're getting a little bit silly with it. 12%. 12% gradient. Almost like no problem. So I think haulage capabilities, this is more than capable of anything you're going to need it to do, even if you've got some very stiff gradients on your layout. So it's very good at general haulage capabilities, very good at gradients. What about sharp radius corners? Now, the blurb tells me that the specification minimum for this is 9-inch radius. This is an A3 box file work in progress layout, a bit of a test track at the moment. The corners on the end of this are about 4.5 inches in radius, so it's about twice as sharp as the specified minimum recommended for the model. And yet, if we have a look, it goes round and round those corners with no problem whatsoever. 4.5-inch radius. That's tighter than the vast majority of layouts will ever need it to do. The only issue you're potentially going to get is in terms of the overhang of the couplings at the front, potentially dragging anything that you're hauling off the corners. And again, we can see there it's pulling them off on the corners. And I suspect the issue with that is to do with the coupling on this one. The couplings on the outer end of these, he's actually had them set slightly higher than the couplings are on this. So they will probably need a bit of adjusting in order to run together. Okay, so this is a set of coaches that my dad built for his old 009 layout that had corners actually even tighter than this. So they've only got couplings on one end, so it's similar to this where there's only the hook on this end and not on this end, so they can only go in one particular order, but that does mean that the hooks then don't get caught on each other, and so you can actually get around much tighter corners with those. So let's see how Welsh Pony does hauling these round. So we can see there that very, very tight corners, no problem for the loco. The only issues you're going to have dependent on the couplings on your rolling stock, but if you've got suitably coupled rolling stock, you can get away with surprisingly tight corners. I've got to say I'm very impressed. I was not expecting it to get anywhere near the curves on this. Let's have a quick look at how it stacks up weight-wise. 60 grams, which is not all that much really, and obviously some of that weight is also in the tender rather than on the loco body, so that's going to be extra weight for it to haul rather than something that's contributing to the traction. And if I just lift that up as much as I can, we're looking around 46 grams for the loco body. So obviously the traction tyres there really are making a difference. Now the traction tyres obviously are a bit divisive. They're quite popular in the 70s but have really fallen out of fashion. But when you see the low weight of these and compare it to the performance, you can really see the difference that they're actually making. So there is pros and cons to it, obviously. Generally speaking, in the past, traction tyres have tend to wear out both with use and over time, generally deterioration. So the question becomes, in 20 years' time, when the traction tyres potentially have given up, are there going to be replacement ones still available? Are replacement wheel sets or axles going to be available instead? They're going to be suitable? Or is it going to be become potentially a very expensive paperweight? Or perhaps rather appropriately for Welsh Pony, destined to become plinth in the station car park? And obviously I can't really know that at the moment. It is the risk that you take with the traction tyres, but inevitably chassis parts on any loco are going to wear out over time, so you could be in exactly the same situation in 20 years' time. Are replacement parts going to be available to repair it or not? So admittedly, the traction tyres is an extra thing that could potentially need to be replaced eventually, but the trade-off for it is really felt in the performance. And ultimately, if you don't like them, the chassis are available to buy separately. So potentially you could buy one of the replacement chassis and then you either use it for spare parts or swap it over and see if you can wire it up to the tender. There is definitely options if you really don't like the traction tyres. If you've got gradients or you want to be hauling heavy or long trains, they are very advantageous to the performance. Okay, now referring back to the instructions, changing the couplings, I'm not really going to need to do that because these are standard 009 couplings that we use in the UK. Potentially I might swap them out for finer ones, maybe Greenwich ones. The main thing in the instructions here is how to install the grab irons, which comes on the fret here. So please cut out the full part and, holding the support from the sprue as shown, insert into positions and twist off the support to leave the detail in place. Be careful not to hurt your fingers. So if you look very closely, you can see this bit on the end is the actual detail, the grab irons, and this bit is what we hold on to affix it. But we've got 10 of these on the sprue. On the loco we've got 2 at the front on the sand pots, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 on the tender, so it's 6. So we've got 4 extra of these, which is very useful in case something goes wrong, they get damaged, either installation or later on during use. It's very good to have spares available. Okay, so let's see how it goes. It says into the little hole. Very gently push it down in and twist it off. Just twist it and very good. There it is in position. I have to say, when I first saw this and reading the instructions, I was very hesitant, but it's actually much more painless than I had imagined. Just hold the loco body steady, push that right down firm and twist it around, it just comes away. Perfect. And then we've got some more in the tender. Again, just holding the body firm. Pushing it straight down until it's all the way in, twist, and it's off. It's quite fun to do as well, and these things is actually really well designed. Hats off to whoever came up with it. It's really quick and easy to do, and it's quite enjoyable too, and it definitely adds that bit extra to the model, I would say. So one thing that I've not mentioned yet, that's probably going to be the biggest drawback for these for a lot of people, is the fact that they are DC only. There is no DCC ready version of these available. I think that's just something to do with Kato. DCC's not really caught on in Japan, and obviously they've made the chassis. I don't think any of their chassis are available DCC ready. It certainly is going to be possible to fit these with a DCC decoder. I've definitely seen models of Prince and Princess exhibitions that have been fitted DCC and sound. But in order to do it, you are going to have to get in there with the soldering iron and hardwire them in. So that is definitely something to take into account when you're looking at these. And there is obviously, in addition to the expertise for knowing how to do that, there's the extra cost that would entail. You might be able to find a model shop or somewhere that would be able to fit it for you, but for DCC modelers, that is a definite drawback to these. Personally, I'm old school DC only anyway, so it doesn't really affect me, but for those DCC modelers out there, it's definitely something to be aware of. So perhaps it doesn't have quite as much fine detail as some products from other manufacturers, but it does more than make up for that on the track, where not only is it silky smooth, it's also incredibly powerful, and with those traction tyres can haul pretty much anything that you want it to. Steep gradients, not a problem whatsoever. I'll probably add a couple more extra details to it, maybe some fire irons and real coal in the tender, and obviously a driver and a fireman, maybe even a little light weathering around the chimney in the smoke box. We'll have to see. So there we have it. That is the Kato Peco version of the Large England Welsh Pony, and I for one am very pleased that they've released this. I'm really happy with it, even with the slight compromises compared to the prototype that they've made. At the end of the day, I'd much rather have this than have no model of Welsh Pony at all. It's just compromises that I can live with, and I guess compared to where we were 10, 20 years ago when I was getting back into 009 modelling, to have something as smooth, powerful and nicely finished as this available, ready to run in a box, just straight to go like that. Sometimes think maybe we kind of forget how lucky we are in 009 at the moment. It is in a lot of ways a golden time for the scale. So I'm very happy to have this. Obviously individual mileage will vary compared to the compromises, but yes, I'm very pleased, and I may well add another one of the Kato Peco Englands to the stable in the future. I'm certainly feeling very positive at the moment. So thank you very much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to do the comment, like, subscribe and all of that jazz. And I'll see you again next time, hopefully not too long. Thank you for watching. Bye.